Hello, everybody. Welcome to Flicker Effect. It has been some time since we have released an episode. I want to apologize for that. Basically, life happens. I suddenly had to travel for some work. And we've also been doing some work here at, we'll call it Flicker Effect Studios. Kind of changing some things up for YouTube. So you'll be seeing more of that soon. But anyway, enough excuses. We're back. This is an episode where we have a lot of catching up to do. So we talk about Game of Thrones. We haven't really chatted about that yet until now. That show has ended. We talk about that. We talk about Aladdin, John Wick 3, Booksmart, lots of things. A lot to talk about in this episode. So thanks for listening, and we hope you enjoy Flicker Effect episode 293. Memorial Day weekend. Bobby, Michelle?
Thanks.
Yes,
Any
sir.
plans?
Not really. Watch Monaco tomorrow, the Grand Prix.
Monaco!
That's basically my plans.
Yeah.
You're into that too, Michelle?
I've always really kind of enjoyed Formula One racing. I wish I could say that I watched it religiously, but I feel like I've watched it on and off. And yeah, I've always enjoyed it. It's a nice way to spend a Sunday morning.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't know. On Monday I'm kind of wanting to go see another movie.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I kind of want to go see Brightburn.
Oh, you want to see Brightburn, that's right.
So I'm kind of toying with that. But there's another part of me that kind of wants to go to our local art house theater and go see a little movie that's there.
Which is?
Is it The Littlest Farm? I forget what it's called now.
You're the one that told me about it. You can't remember the name? Come on.
I think it's a documentary. I think it's called The Littlest Farm. But it's about this couple. They get married and they go buy this big, humongous piece of land, and they decide we're going to be farmers. And it's, I guess, the things that ensue, but they filmed it over the course of a few years. So you get to really see a lot of their trials and tribulations between wow, this crop is going to take 3 effing years to actually produce anything decent. 3 years. We're literally going to sink 3 years into this section. And oh yeah, these animals over here, yeah, they're doing really well. Oh, hey, a flu hit them or something, oh no, it looked interesting.
How'd you hear about it?
Well, our art house, since we're members of the art house movie theater that's here, they send emails all the time, and I follow them on Instagram. And the one morning I was going through, and they put the trailer on their Instagram to say, hey, this is starting up tonight for the the week or the 2 weeks or whatever the runtime is for it. It was like, oh my gosh, I'm like, this looks really good. And it got really good reviews at Sundance, I think it was. Is that true? Was it Sundance? Anyways, so yeah.
And I'm all for going to NZ and seeing a movie, but at the same time, one thing really needs to happen, which is you need to watch John Wick 2, and when we need to see John Wick 3.
That does need
That needs to happen.
This is true. Maybe we'll do a little John Wick 2 tomorrow and a little John Wick 3 on Monday.
Yeah.
Can I gush a little bit about John Wick while we're on the subject?
As long as you
Gush
don't give anything
no
away
spoilers.
to
No, come
me.
on.
But
We're not going to talk about spoilers at all.
I know
Yeah.
that.
About anything.
Anyways, John Wick, what you got, Bobby?
Yeah, so, obviously it's the third in the series, Keanu Reeves. It's just, he embodies this character so well, and it's so hard to believe where the roots of this movie came from that first movie where it was just sort of this personal story about some guy who had this wife and she's no longer there, and they have this dog, and the dog gets killed, and then he just goes off, and it's sort of developed from there. And obviously where the second movie takes it into this third, this movie was just for me, something that brought me back to being a kid, because I remember watching when I was really young, USA Network used to have these kung fu movies they'd play. I forget what it was called, like Shogun Theater or something. And on the weekends in the afternoon, they'd just play all these different kung fu movies. And what I always used to love about those movies was at the time I didn't really know what it was called or how to phrase it specifically, but the choreography of the moves of the fighting, just being able to see how fluid it was and how quick they could be with their movements and not cutting away from the action as they do here, when typically you see fighting scenes and the stars aren't capable of doing the fights. There's the quick cuts and you see different parts of the body and close-ups. And so you don't really get a full sense of the action. Whereas in this, Keanu Reeves being sort of like Tom Cruise in the sense of doing a lot of his own stunts. And he's actually gone through the training for a lot of the martial arts and the gun firing and shootouts and stuff, that it looks good and they can do these long shots and continuous shots and the different types of action that's being shown in the movie is just, it made me giddy just because of how fluid it looks and how just to the point where you just feel like you're in this high adrenaline action film almost from start to finish. And it just had me so amped up. And I just hadn't had that feeling in so long that when I saw it the first time, I think I saw it on the Friday morning, I had to go see it again Saturday night just because I was chasing that feeling of like, man. And I'm glad I did, because when I saw it Friday morning, and there was like a decent amount of people in the audience, but it was a Friday morning showing. And I think, David, you may have mentioned this before in the terms of when you go see a movie at a certain time and the audience is one way. But then when I went Saturday night, it was like 7:00 on a Saturday and it was full theater. So you get the full sense of everybody interacting with the movie when certain scenes are happening, and you hear the oohs and the ahs and just like the cheers and the claps. And that really adds to the element of the movie, especially when it's a good movie. And so it was fun seeing it that way that second time. And I enjoyed it immensely the first time. But yeah, just getting that crowd experience around it the second time really elevated it. And I'm just so happy. And they had already announced that they're doing another one that comes out in, I want to say 2021. Maybe around May-ish, sometime, I think. But I'm already looking forward to that one, counting down the days until that one comes out, just because of how much I love this one.
How old is Keanu Reeves now?
50-something.
Why would you ruin
exactly.
I was going to say it must be his 50s.
No, he's in his... I know that, but I pretend that's not what's happening.
Oh, really?
He's ageless.
Why? I mean...
Why does it? Does it matter?
It doesn't.
Yeah. It shouldn't matter.
He's ageless. I love
yeah,
Keanu.
Seriously.
Man, I had the biggest crush on Keanu ever since I was a little girl. Like, literally watching him and Bill and Ted, I was like, he's so cute.
And Bill and Ted did it, huh? Just because of his character in that is so like...
Name something he did before Bill and Ted.
I'm not saying I had a crush on him at all, so I don't...
I mean, I was like, wow, this guy's really cute. I really like him. And then if you fast forward a few years and Speed came out, and I was like, oh, heartbeat still.
I know we talked about this before, and I'm just going to do it again just to get the reaction, but I still haven't seen Speed.
No.
Though, actually, haven't you not seen Speed too, David? Or you've seen it, but you've only seen it like... You've seen it?
Yes. Oh, yeah. I've seen Speed.
Okay.
I'm not saying it's a cinematic masterpiece or anything, but I will say, like, I find Speed enjoyable to this day.
Oh, no,
I think it's a solid action film.
Speed
like that
is a solid movie,
it
and
is good.
Speed was a thing when it came out.
Oh yeah,
for a reason.
It
like,
was
really
a thing. I mean, it talked about just not launching, but more solidifying the fact of the launch of Keanu Reeves's career and Sandra Bullock's career. Because I feel like they were already in, but it was more like, okay, they're here to stay.
Right.
You know? Anyways, no. Yeah.
Which would you say is or not better, but which do you enjoy more, Speed or Point Break?
Speed.
See, I've never seen Point Break.
Oh, you haven't?
Well, that's right. That's
really?
the one you haven't.
No, I haven't seen that. And it's one of those things that if I have, it would be like watching it again for the first time. I don't really remember it, so I'm pretty sure I haven't seen it.
And what's funny is Point Break is actually where a lot of girls started having their crushes on him, I think.
Yeah.
But I think so. I saw that film.
So why do you react like you react when I said Bill and Ted's was the one?
Because that was like the first thing he did.
Yeah, but anyway, go on.
Anyways.
Was there anything before that? The reaction I get.
It's like the first thing he did. I don't know. Yeah, Bill and Ted's. Yes. Anyways, no, I wasn't. I remember watching Point Break when I didn't see it in theaters, but I guess basically when it released to VHS is when I first saw Point Break. And I remember kind of watching it with a girlfriend of mine, and she and I both were kind of like, this movie's actually pretty stupid. We both were really kind of bummed by it. But then we gave it a few more years, and then Speed came out and solidified everything. It's good.
He was in Dangerous Liaisons before Bill and Ted.
Oh, yeah. And see, and I didn't see that movie for a few years after it came out. I remember that because he played the young kid. That poor kid. Yeah. I didn't see Dangerous Liaisons until I was in high school.
Did you ever see this other one? I'm looking at his IMDb, River's Edge. It sounds familiar, but I don't think I ever saw it.
For some reason, that does sound weird.
I have his IMDb page up as well, and I'm looking at that poster, and that does not look familiar.
No, the poster doesn't, but the name of the movie sounds familiar. But I could be confusing it with something else.
But I will say, I think Keanu Reeves is timeless. He's wonderful.
Yeah, he's to think of him still doing the things that he's doing these days, and it's kind of like he's had sort of a quiet resurgence because he didn't necessarily go away per se, but it wasn't like he was doing anything that anyone was taking notice of until that John Wick movie came around.
Yeah, I think he kind of does that on and off throughout his whole career, honestly. I feel like he'll kind of take like 2 years off for himself or longer, and then he'll do a few films, and then he'll take some time off. I think he does it to kind of recenter himself. He seems kind of that kind of a person that he's like, yeah, I like to do work, I like working, I like doing what I do. But I think he gets to a point where he goes, I need to recenter and refocus myself again because I'm starting to lose things and I'm going to pull back. And I think he does that. And I think he does it really well.
And I got to say, while we're giving props to Keanu Reeves, I got to give props to Halle Berry in this movie as well, because she's in her 50s and she is killing it in the movie. I thought she was excellent in the film. So look out for her too when you get a chance to watch it.
Another wonderful, timeless, ageless person.
Yeah, really.
I mean, that's good to hear, because that was the one thing that I didn't care for from seeing the trailer for the movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think I talked about it on here. It was like,
I think you did. Now that you say that.
I don't know. I remember as soon as she popped up in the very first trailer for John Wick 3, and she pops up at the end of the trailer, I was just like, oh, Halle Berry is in this. I didn't know what to think of that. I don't know. It just kind of took me out of it.
She works in the context of the film for sure. So that's kind of a good thing. But since we didn't record a show last week, you guys were at MegaCon. Anything fun going on there at MegaCon?
I'll jump in real fast. It was my first MegaCon. Sorry, I'm just saying. Like,
no, go ahead.
It's the first time I got to go to MegaCon and actually go to MegaCon. Like, I've been, because it's here in Orlando, like when MegaCon's gone on, I've been in that area when MegaCon has happened. And the one year I went to like was it the after party, or was it just like the Saturday night party that they held?
Oh, they had they had some kind of officially sanctioned party inside the convention center, like in
a ballroom.
Room.
Yeah. And I went to that with you that one year, but I've never gone to MegaCon. So this was my first time actually with a pass going. And I will say I was impressed. It was a lot bigger and a lot busier than I thought it was going to be. I figured it was going to kind of be, and I hate to say it honestly, but I kind of thought this was going to be kind of almost mediocre-ish, and I was completely wrong. Like 110% wrong. Like I was like, oh wow, this is like legit. I mean, I wouldn't say it was like going to San Diego, but I was impressed. I was amazed. There's a ridiculous amount of vendors and booths, and there was some solid cosplay happening too. It was impressive. I was really surprised. And they had some good panels. And it was one of those things, it was like, we only have the 1 day pass. It was kind of like, oh, well, I could see having, 2, maybe even 3 days. That way you can go to some, because some of the panels were actually kind of interesting. And we wound up walking into, we wound up going to 2 panels. We kind of walked into one at the end of Lost Boys.
Lost Boys, yeah. And Kiefer Sutherland was there.
Yeah.
With,
okay.
What was his name?
I forgot his name. The one who didn't seem like he was really interested in actually being there.
Yeah, he seemed like he was there because he almost had to be or something anyway. You always get those sometimes with panels and celebrities. But
Kiefer was lovely. I think he
Kiefer
loves
seemed
doing
great.
this stuff. I don't think he does a lot of it, but I think when he does, he really enjoys it. I think he likes being there for his fans, and he knows that he has them from a plethora of different things that he's done. So he was lovely and enjoyable. I will say, very lovely looking man. Starting to show his age, and it just made me feel old. I was like,
Lost Boys was like 30 years ago, I think.
oh God, that hurts to even hear. I'm not that old, am I? God.
Because, like you said, he has been in a lot of different movies and and a few hit shows for himself under his belt. So, I mean, I don't think he does a lot of conventions. When you said that, I was starting to think in my mind, has he been to Comic-Con? And I'm sure maybe he has, but I don't think it's a regular kind of thing for him where he goes that often.
No, I don't think so either, because I remember when MegaCon announced he was going to be there, my immediate reaction was like, oh, this doesn't seem like a Kiefer Sutherland kind of thing to do. Like,
I mean, I can see him going to the occasional one. He probably does like 1 or 2 a year, quite honestly. I'm sure, but he doesn't.
But you think he'd go to the big ones,
right? Yeah, I mean, and he's got a hit show. He's got Designated Survivor is still going, apparently. I don't watch it, but apparently Netflix it's doing well. So, he's got people.
But yeah, MegaCon was good. I mean, I was just there for the full day Saturday and then like a half day Friday. And I mean, it is crazy in terms of attendance numbers, how big it is.
I was surprised.
I got to imagine it blows away WonderCon in terms of attendance. And I mean, I think all these conventions never really officially put out numbers, but there's always numbers out there you can find via like Business Insider kind of like trades and stuff.
Right.
And I remember seeing numbers published fairly recently for MegaCon, and they were definitely over the numbers I hear for DragonCon. And
really?
Oh yeah.
No.
What's those numbers?
No way.
I'm pretty sure the last I'd heard, like a most that DragonCon has had is in like the 70,000.
Wow.
And MegaCon, I think, is right up there around 100.
I would have never.
Wow.
No. Really?
I think hear me out.
Atlanta is different.
I think the thing about DragonCon that can be deceiving is because of the space it's in, and because it can be so crowded going from hotel to hotel, it feels like just 100,000 people when really it's not. It's a different kind of space.
Right. I was going to say between the space being different and then just the way the city is. And like you go in the city and there's people that just hang out in downtown because of the convention. They don't even have badges. They're just hanging out, looking at cosplay. And then there's the parade and everything. So I guess maybe in my head, it kind of feels like it's so much bigger because of those reasons.
But yeah, MegaCon numbers are way up there. I mean, of course, when it comes to a convention, for me, it's like, when I first started going to MegaCon, it was a locally owned convention. It has since been purchased by Fan Expo. So Fan Expo runs it, and it's definitely changed. It's not an obvious change, but it definitely feels more corporate now.
Yeah.
And, they definitely play the game like a lot of those, conventions that are owned by bigger companies where they have different levels of badge. They have a VIP badge that gets you access to a lounge, and all the panels, VIP badge holders get in first, and then the general audience gets in, and
they can stay in the room for the panels if you have the VIP badge. I learned that.
Because MegaCon clears the room between panels, except for VIP holders. They can stick around.
They can stay in the room.
And that kind of thing irritates me. It's one of those things I've always liked, that San Diego has not done that. They have a badge. And other than press badges and professional badges, like otherwise you're buying a badge at Comic-Con, you're getting the same badge as everybody else.
Yep, pretty much. Yeah.
And they don't overcharge for it.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder too what MegaCon, how much of a cut they must take like from the celebrities for their autographs and such. And because the one example that comes to mind,
This is so good.
like
This is so good.
I'm walking down the area where they have all the celebrities at their tables doing, autographs and stuff. And all the Back to the Future cast was there this year, like Michael J. Fox, Christopher Lloyd, all
It was
of
a
them.
whole reunion for
Really?
Back to the Future. The
Yeah.
entire cast of Back to the Future.
Wow.
So I'm walking.
Except for
No
Crispin.
kidding. Are you serious?
Yeah, they were all there.
Except
Other
for
than
Crispin.
Crispin Glover, I don't think was there.
Crispin
You're right.
Glover didn't go, but otherwise everybody was there. That was like the thing
That
for
was-
MegaCon. That was the thing
Yeah.
this year.
Yeah, that's what I would have definitely
Oh,
tried
yeah.
to make sure I got to that panel. For
Between
sure.
that and then the Boy Meets World cast, those were the two
Okay, I can see that.
those were the two big ones.
They had
Like,
some 2 or 3. There were 3 Goonies cast members there.
and there were 3 Goonies cast members. Yeah, Sean Astin was there.
But Zachary Levi was there.
Zach Levi, my boyfriend.
So
he
anyway,
was
I'm
there.
walking by all those tables, and there's a decent lines in front of the tables that have celebrities that are there at the moment. They always kind of in and out at different times.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm walking by, and then I see a table for David Tennant, and he's there. But there's like nobody,
Like no line.
no line. There's like a handful of people like right up near his table, but otherwise, I'm like, David Tennant, he's pretty big, at least amongst all of us.
Oh no, David Tennant's huge.
For people going to a convention, he's huge. I mean, he's the kind of actor I could probably mention his name to a lot of general audience, and they'd be like, "Who the hell is David Tennant?" But
No, for geeks and nerds
Yeah,
and
he's-
sci-fi and
he's big.
fantasy, he's a big dude.
so to see
Like,
that there was like no line, I'm like, man, this is weird. But then I see that there's a table up closer to where I am, like before you can get in his line where you would pay for his autograph.
I had a feeling because
And
there's just no way that there's no line for David
He
Tennant.
was charging $110 for his autograph.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, are you fucking kidding
What's
me?
the average though? I don't know what
Like
how
$50
much do they-
I would say most of the time I see, $50. I think a lot of them this year I noticed were like 60. 110 is for an autograph. That's a lot.
that's insane. Like for $110, I don't want just your autograph. I don't want to walk up and be like, "Oh, hi. Oh, thank you." And then walk away and be like, "So David, so talk to me. So, this project we're working on, or hey, so about this other thing, like what's up with that?"
You wanna
Like
get some time in.
I would be like talking. Like we're going to have a conversation for $110. I'm not going to use up your day, but we're going to have a legit interaction here.
I'd better also get like a selfie and everything.
Oh,
Like,
hells yes.
$110 bucks.
I don't even want a generic selfie. I want a, hey, this is going to be fun. Let's do this. I want a, no, yeah, things are happening.
and I'm saying this, I'm in general not an autograph guy. Like, it's just, I don't know.
Yeah, I know.
It's one of those things like I'd be more than happy to go up to some of these tables and just meet them. Hey, and shake your hand. Like, love your work.
No, I would
but
too,
an
yeah.
autograph, I'm good. I mean, unless, it's for a comic book, more of a comic book collector, and it was like a comic book artist or writer that I really wanted to sign a comic book, maybe to elevate its, price
get
point.
that.
And maybe I would do
Yeah,
that, but
yeah.
otherwess I'm just not an autograph person.
Right. I mean, I'm more or
Me
less just,
neither.
and I'm not the biggest autograph person, but I more or less just want to, like you're saying, like meet them and just be like, hey, I love your work. I think you're awesome. Keep doing what you're doing.
Right.
Don't mess this up. That's a horrible thing to say, but like, yeah, it was like seeing his little table saying that. And then like on Saturday, like you said, Friday, there was a few people in his line. Saturday, there was nobody in his line. It was him and like 2 assistants, and they were just kind of like hanging out at the table. And I was like, and there's lines deep all around him. And I'm like, the cut that not MegaCon, what's the company?
Fan Expo.
Fan Expo must be taking must be pretty decent. I just can't see David Tennant normally charging that much because it's not even like it was an official sign. It looked like it was a whiteboard.
Yeah.
So
The only thing I can think of is that maybe he is the type that like he's like, fine, I'll do a convention and he'll sign some autographs. But maybe he's just the type that he's not interested in just signing autograph after autograph after autograph. Because,
I get that
he
too.
could charge much less and make a lot more money because people would then, like, if you were charging $30 an autograph, $40 an autograph, like he would have a huge line, and he would make way more money, but then he would also be signing and signing and signing and signing.
Right.
And maybe he's just like, I don't want to deal with that. He's like, I'll make an appearance, and if you want an autograph, you gotta pay this
and
much.
I think it must be something like that, only because I hear nothing but good things for people that do the meet and greets with him and do go to the panels where he's talking. He seems like a very friendly guy and very nice. Like, from what I see, from what I can observe, that's all I could say to that.
Right.
He's pulling a Disneyland.
The what?
A Disneyland.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he's raising his price so that, the attendance can't be too overcrowded, so he doesn't have to deal with that. So it's like, essentially Disneyland.
Basically.
But I do like walking through that section of cons. Like, I like seeing them. I'm like, oh, look, there's Rose McIver from iZombie. Hey, Rose, she's so cute.
You saw her at San Diego Comic-Con, too.
Yeah, twice. 2 years.
That was when you hadn't seen the season finale.
Yeah.
And Bobby, you called her out on that.
Yeah.
Super not embarrassing at all.
That's good times.
Yeah. Listen to you, you're like, that was the best.
Oh, the good old days.
Speaking of which,
The good old days back when we
I
had to
got
wait
to
in
throw
line for
Michelle
all
under
age.
the rug. It was awesome.
Isn't that show coming back, or is it back already or something?
No, it's done. It's last season. It's 5 seasons. That's it.
Oh, I thought it was had one more season that it was finishing.
It's finished. I think it still needs to air, but season 5 is it. It's done.
Oh, okay.
It's
Oh,
over. I know,
so
because
did you watch
the
that
cast keeps.
series end.
I watched the first 3 seasons. I have not watched season 4.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, but it's been sad, like on Instagram, watching the cast members like post their photos, like, it's all over. I miss these people. I love you. So anyways, but no, like, you see Rose McIver, like Zach Levi was there, and then like I like seeing like Michael Rosenbaum and Tom. What's his
Wellington?
name? Yes, Tom Wellington. Thank you. Or Welling, Tom Welling. That's it.
Well,
And I like seeing them. And then I guess the girl, I can't remember her name. Super amazing eyes. She was on the show with them. Small Bill.
No.
She was there, yeah.
Really?
Oh, Christian.
Oh my God, Crook.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she
the three of them were there.
I would die. Oh my God.
Wow. I struck
Oh my
struck a
God.
chord there.
Oh, she's awesome.
Wow. I'm not denying that at all. She's
Because I don't
a
think
beautiful
I've
woman.
seen her go to panels before. Not even for when
Well,
they had
she was there at MegaCon, and she was there with the guys. I think she was only there for one day though, because like Michael Rosenbaum, he's got his own podcast he does, and he's really active on his Instagram, and so he was constantly updating his My Story, and like him and Tom, they were always kind of goofing off, and at one point, I think even like Tom was hanging out with Zach Levi, and they were kind of goofing off, but then like he had one story with her, and then the rest of the time it was like Michael with like everybody else again. Like, I don't know. So I think she might have just been in for a day and then back out. Like, I guess the day that they actually did stuff that she was out. But yeah. Anyways, no, it's fun to walk that aisle. I like that section. And I will say, this is a cool part to MegaCon. I really liked the tattoo artist alley. That was really cool.
Yeah, and that's something they've done since it was a locally owned con. And I remember the first time I went and seeing that they have kind of a tattoo artist alley where you can go, and you have all these artists that definitely you can tell they specialize in kind of pop culture geek kind of tattoos, and some that are like officially licensed to do stuff like say Star Wars tattoos.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool, and they've
cool.
stayed with that since they were purchased by Fan Expo, which is nice to see.
It was so cool. Like, I was like, wow, you can get an officially licensed artist to do your Star Wars stuff, your Disney stuff. Like, these are artists that they've been allowed the rights and the privileges to do this, and so you're getting a high quality tattoo of the thing that you love. And that's awesome. Like, it's not just, I don't know. And I'm not to be smirching other tattoo parlors. I have tattoos. Like, I love getting a tattoo. But I feel like if you loved, 3PO for whatever reason, and that was what you wanted, You can go anywhere and get a 3PO, or you can go and get one done by a completely certified licensed guy that's what he does. Like, he's very specific in his art with Star Wars stuff. Oh, yeah. Get the dude that's legit. Like, yeah. Anyways, there were some really amazing artists there. They were really cool. Mm-hmm. I was impressed. I was like, man, more cons need this. Yeah. It would make a ton of money, too. Hand over fist.
Oh, yeah.
Like a Dragon Con? Oh my God. Could you imagine how much money those tattoo artists would make at Dragon Con?
Yeah, I mean, that's the first convention that comes to mind for that kind of thing.
Oh my God.
It seems like that's like a perfect marriage.
Those poor tattooed artists would be just so ridiculously tired by the end of that convention because they would have lines just for miles.
I think Dragon Con's issue would just be space, where to put them kind of thing.
That's true. Anyways.
I'm just really amazed by the amount of people that they had on the roster to show up at MegaCon. I've heard, I know you've gone for a while, David. I don't know how many you've gone to, but I've never really heard you talk about any panels or any sort of special guests that they've had, at least not to this caliber, I don't think. And it sounds like it's like a sort of a banner year for it or something in terms of guests, and maybe going corporate maybe helped that a little bit.
I mean, yes, though, like I remember before they went corporate, you know, what you're talking about, Michelle, where it was like this year seemed to be the big thing they were pushing was the Back to the Future casts. There always seems to be like every year, like they have like a big group of cast members from one particular thing that they are pushing. Focus. I remember one year before they were purchased, it was the year they basically had the entire Next Gen cast there.
Wow. Oh my God. Wow.
Pretty much like they had one whole section of tables that was just I don't know who was missing if anybody. It was basically all of the main cast members of Next Generation were there that year.
Wow.
And my problem is I will admit I've been to MegaCon a few times, but I haven't done any panels there. I think a lot of times because I have gone with my son. And yeah, he's getting old enough now that I could see taking him into a panel or two. But at the time earlier, like, no, it was more like, oh, it's just taking him and he likes walking around the exhibit floor, you know. But I haven't done a ton of panels at MegaCon. And yeah, when you're doing panels like this at a convention like MegaCon, it's straight up like Q&A. You know, it's not like San Diego where it's like announcements are being made and, you know, it's all studio run kind of panels, you know. We are here to talk about this new project. Like at a convention like MegaCon, it's not so much like that. It's more like a Lost Boys panel, something we did 30 years ago, or Back to the Future, or something
it's
we did.
For the fans.
You know, it's a fan panel for something we all love and already know, and we just want to like revisit. It's that kind of thing.
Yeah, totally.
But you get, you know, I mean, Zachary Levi did his panel, I think, on Sunday. We weren't there for that.
And obviously, Sunday, yeah. I
mean, Shazam's already been out, but I'm sure that was a majority of that discussion probably centered around Shazam. Yeah. That's something recent.
Yeah, I think he was the last big panel for the weekend, actually. I think he closed it out.
Was there a reason you didn't go on Sunday?
Oh, just plans. There was an Orlando City match that day.
And it was the last episode of Game of Thrones.
And there was, Game
of Thrones.
Man, we got we got to get off the Meg. I'm starting to think about it. I'm like, wait, I'm dying to hear what Michelle thinks of Aladdin. And yeah, that's, oh my God, I forgot that we haven't talked about Game of Thrones.
No, I've been sitting on Game of Thrones. I've been sitting on Game of Thrones for like ever. And it's killing me. So that last episode of Game of Thrones, I feel like we should have the theme music playing right now. Yeah.
I'll see what I can do.
Post.
There's always post-production. Yeah, Game of Thrones.
Bobby.
Go ahead, Michelle.
Oh, no.
You're the one who brought it up. Anxious.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I will say, again, the hater rate on this episode was so stupidly strong the next day. It was sad to see. I guess the best thing I could say is that I really liked it. I'm very happy with the way it ended.
I mean, I'm just going to say real quick, to be clear, we're not going to talk about spoilers for this, but which will be difficult to do.
Oh God, I was going to say. Okay.
Unless we want to save this till the end, and we could kind of hold this to the end, but If we want to talk about spoilers,
there's a thing I want to say basically that sums up my one kind of like negative, and I feel like I can say it without spoilers. So I like the episode. Did it wrap up exactly the way maybe I had pictured in my head? No, but I'm not writing the show. I'm here for the ride. I'm here for the journey. And I feel that the way that they wrapped it up, I think was good. I liked it. There's things in it that I was kind of like, that was a little bit of a miss for me. But you know what? I didn't write this show. I'm enjoying it. I'm just seeing how it plays out. And I'm pretty happy with the resolution. I will say though, you know, when it came down to like I'm going to phrase it this way, who's sitting on the Iron Throne, I was really surprised at first. It really kind of took me aback. I was like, But then it sat with me for like a little while, and I was kind of like, I'm good with it. It's fine. That's totally fine. I get it. I soups get it. It's fine. So I'm good with it. I'm happy with it. Overall, a few little nitpicky issues, but mostly that's just because I'm like, that might not have planned out exactly the way I thought it was going to, but you know what? It's cool. Like, I'm good. I'm happy. That's where I'm at. I didn't love the episode as far as like, I will say, like how I felt about the other previous episodes in the season that I did enjoy. Like this one was kind of low, I will say. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Yeah.
In the 6 episodes, it was not my favorite.
Right.
Somewhere in the middle.
What you're saying.
Somewhere in the middle there.
Okay.
I will say for episodes for the season. Anyways, but no, I'm happy with it. How about you?
About me?
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And it's about, I'm not saying how things exactly played out plot wise was how I expected. I honestly didn't really go out of my way to really try to predict anything.
No, you didn't. I remember I tried getting that out of you a little bit.
Yeah, you were trying to ask me like what did I think was going to happen, and I'm just like, I don't know. Like I'm just kind of curious to see what they choose to do. And the problem with this show was it could have done 20 different things.
Totally.
It wasn't the kind of movie and or show that like had like an obvious direction. This show is made a point to just kill expectations. It could have done anything. So yeah, I didn't know, and I didn't kind of care to know. But what I'm trying to say is like, the finale didn't end the way I thought it was going to, because I had like a plot, idea in my mind. It was more like it was the kind of episode I expected. And part of me is like, I haven't gone out of my way to really read in detail a lot of the reasons why everyone has such a negative reaction to it. But part of me is like, did people really feel like because it's the finale, it was just going to be a big major finale, kind of like almost bigger than episode 5, the episode before it? Like, I don't know. And,
I know, I'm confused by myself.
If that is the reasoning, I'm like, have these people watch Game of Thrones?
Right. Yes.
I never expected the finale, especially after episode 5. I never watched episode 5 and then was like, man, episode 6 is gonna be insane. Like, no.
Right.
Like,
it's gonna be a wrap up.
It's gonna basically be a wrap up. I mean, yeah, there was some pretty epic stuff that needed to be wrapped up, but
no, there weren't.
It was basically the kind of episode I thought we were gonna get, and I was totally fine with it. I mean, in general, I will still agree with the problem some people have, and it's a problem I have had since season 7, which I agree. Season 7 and 8, I definitely wish it had been 10 episode seasons.
I fully agree. I'm still with you on that.
I mean, totally. If I do have a problem, that is it. It is rushed. And there is definitely stuff in this episode, in episode 6, that is, unfortunately, I feel rushed.
Yes.
And there is something in particular I'd like to talk about, but yeah, it's spoilers. But yeah, it's just the way it is. I got to assume that this is a matter of, HBO saying, well, here's your budget for the season, and Benioff and Weiss going, well, with that much money and what we want to do, I guess 6 episodes.
Guess that's what we're doing. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, otherwise, yeah, if it could have been 10 episodes, that would have been fantastic, but it is what it is. And for anybody out there that just hating on Game of Thrones and so upset by the ending that they are now just completely upset with the show in general, that's also something I just don't understand. Because what has been great about this show has been the ride. I never expected it to be like the ending that was going to be the thing for me. Like, this show was the game.
It's about the journey.
It was about the journey for me. And yeah. I think that's another reason why I wasn't going out of my way to like try to predict the ending, because I kind of just didn't care. I had enjoyed the show so much up until that point that I mean, in a ways they could almost do no wrong for me. I mean, yeah, it could have been a terrible, terrible episode and I would have hated that. But at the same time, I'd still be like, but it was a great show, you know, and
overall, it is a solid show.
And the funny thing is too, is I've seen a couple different memes and such out there relating its finale to Lost. And the funny thing about that for me is that Lost, for me, in my experience, is the opposite of that. My problem was with Lost, and why I jumped off ship on Lost, like back, I think in season 3, is because that show didn't do a good enough job of just being a good ride. It was all about like the mystery, and it was all about, man, what is going on here? I have to figure this out. And it finally got to this point where I was like, they're not giving me enough as an audience member to eat, to feed off of, to want to keep watching this, because all you keep doing is asking more questions. And it was like obvious that it really was all about the finale. Like, that show seemed it was completely geared toward getting somewhere. And Game of Thrones was not like that. Game of Thrones was just, it was great to watch the Game of Thrones, the game of how the politics and everything works. That's what was enjoyable about it. I didn't care about how it ended in a way, you know? And it's funny that that's the show people have been using to compare it to, like, oh, you thought Lost had a bad ending. Well, watch Game of Thrones. I'm like, man, you guys really just don't get it.
The one that's funny, and unfortunately I've not finished this series, but all I could think is it's hilarious is have you seen the one where it's like, some of y'all Game of Thrones people obviously never finished up with Dexter and got that shit show of a finale, is basically what the meme is saying.
Right.
Have you seen that one?
I don't think I've seen that, but I saw something along the lines
so
like
good.
Somebody thought this was worse than the way Dexter ended. And I'm like,
yeah, everybody's saying basically like, you Game of Thrones people have no idea what pain is until you commit to Dexter and get the finale you get with Dexter. And I thought it was funny. It's just the way, and I'm not wording the meme, but that's basically the gist of it. And I thought it was hilarious. I was dying. I had tears in my eyes. I thought it was so funny.
But overall, I was very happy with the episode. I mean, and honestly, even as it ended that night, it hadn't really crossed my mind yet to think, oh man, I wonder what everyone else thinks of this, because I just enjoyed it. And then, I got up the next morning and I'm like, oh, I guess I shouldn't be surprised by this reaction, but here it is. But now I'm curious, Bobby, what'd you think?
Yeah, Bobby, what did you think?
Well, so how you said when you were talking about it, David, when you mentioned that the show could have ended in so many different ways, I feel like that's a real thing, because there were so many different characters that we had to follow and tie up where they land, that there's so many different scenarios in which they could have taken the characters. And I feel like one of the ways, and just in general, this whole last season could have ended, could have been having the game stuff kind of tied off before the long night stuff, and had that as the ending. And then just sort of like off they go to their destination, after that. It could have that could have been one way to take the whole entire last season, just because so many people thought, okay, the battle against the walkers,
the White Walkers.
The White Walker. I was starting to think
Walking Dead.
Walking Dead.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. That would have been the end of the series, is trying to finish up with them, but as we saw, that happens, episode 3 of this season? So you kind of know where things are going to have to go essentially after you see that that's taking place early on within this season, this final season. So watching this final episode, to me, I did get the sense of how it was to me, like how the Lost season finale was, or series finale was, because of how that show was watched by a lot of people. It was appointment watching. It was water cooler talk next day of that show, and that's how Game of Thrones has been. And so when that finale came, and it seems like even though we didn't live in the day of Twitter and the internet as much as we do now, um, there was just a sense that you could feel that reverberated throughout the I guess geekverse or whatever you want to call it, that it was disappointing for a lot of people. And I happen to be on the other side of that because the thing that I always loved about Lost was the characters and their journey. And you see a lot of that throughout the series because you grow to love these characters. And yes, there's this whole mystery of the island and what's going on there that I was obviously into as well, just because you kind of are curious what's going on here. This whole series is set up with a specific premise, and you're trying to figure out things, and that is a big part of it. But throughout that, I don't think you care as much about the mystery if you don't care about the characters. So when that series finale came, and it was more character driven than about answering every single question that they kind of had put forth, it didn't matter to me because it wasn't that wasn't what kept me involved in the show and kept me going. It was getting to see where these characters ended up, and that was my experience with Game of Thrones. It was where I, like you, David, I typically don't have an answer as to where I think things are going to go with a show. I let them tell that story, and I'm just going to take their version of it so that it lands the way they want it to land, as opposed to the way I was thinking that it was going to go. So once I watched that episode and finished, I was happy with the episode overall because as I thought about where certain characters landed, it felt true to me based on what we've seen of these characters and how we've seen them essentially change and grow, and ultimately getting to a place of where you think, based on where you've seen them start and journey towards, where they would end up. And so it felt true to me. And so I couldn't help but to enjoy it. Nothing completely rang false that I was like, I don't see how this character could end up in this place based on everything I've seen from them so far. So things made sense in a way to me that it was easy for me to accept and be like, okay, that I get that. So I think that's where I leaned towards and made me enjoy the episode for what it was. As Michelle said, there's things that I could sort of pick at, but that's fine. I mean, nothing's perfect, but overall, I enjoyed it and thought what they did with it was satisfying to me, and I had no real major complaints or big issues about it. So, I feel bad for people that did because I don't know if I don't know if they got swept up in the that hate that was going on and just kind of let that fuel them as well, or if they were genuinely disappointed and had been along for the ride and loving things all the way up until this point. And for them, I feel bad because obviously they wanted something that was going to satisfy them in the same way that it did for me, and it didn't. And I would imagine how much that sucks. And I can tell you from experiencing the Dexter thing, yeah, that ending was not good. I don't know how they really arrived at that, and it just felt completely like it was off book. It just didn't feel like it was true, and so I can see why that one gets lauded as much as it does. But this one, it'll be interesting to see if time is kind to it, and people can reflect later on in life to see if they accept it a little bit more. So, and it'll be interesting to see if George finishes the books where he takes it, if it's any different, or if people will still feel the same way about the books and not be satisfied in some sort of way. So, yeah, it's a sad way for the series, I think, to go out in terms of the overall conversation and where people seem to feel that it lands for them. But yeah, I do hope that maybe people will revisit it one day and then have a kinder take on it.
Yeah, it is sad because in one sense I want to be like, I don't care what other people think of it, and I don't. Like, I enjoyed it, and that's what matters to me.
Right.
But at the same time, it's a bummer that we're not all just celebrating it, and it's instead everyone is just like, not everybody, but it seems, I don't know if it's 50-50, 60-40 or what, but a lot of people are very upset by it, and it's a bummer that that's how it's going out,
It is. It's frustrating. And all I can say is, yeah, I'm with Bobby. I hope time will tell, and I hope that time will be kind, and I hope that some of these people will not only give the show another chance, but just another viewing, because I wonder if these people, kind of this anger they have, kind of one of the themes I keep seeing is that they're surprised by stuff and that they're like, I don't understand. And I'm like, I think you and I, David, have definitely had the privilege of rewatching this whole thing. And so it's like everything's character development is very fresh in our minds as we went into the season. And for me, like, especially this last episode, there's 3 characters that I think on this last episode specifically, that their characters ended up exactly the way I was hoping they would. And it was quite perfect in my mind. And I feel like it makes complete sense, again, watching the journey that has occurred, this entire thing, and to see their characters grow and change into what they were. It made perfect sense to me. And some people were like, I don't understand this. And I'm like, you need to go back and rewatch Game of Thrones. Like, I don't know how else to explain that. Like,
yeah, I've thought about that too,
this.
in the fact that the way people react. I have to feel like a lot of these people too have not watched episodes since they aired.
Right.
And I'm not saying everyone needs to rewatch things, even though I'm always a big proponent on here of, rewatching things, and I get a lot more out of things when I rewatch them. But especially this, I mean, since you and I did just rewatch the entire show leading up to season 8, and I definitely think we take a different perspective because that's all so incredibly fresh, and it's easier for you and I now to see that kind of bigger picture of the entire show because we just rewatched all of it.
Yeah, and the arcs of different characters.
So the things happening in season 8, I guess I wasn't just like grasping at everything that was going to happen in season 8 as much because I don't know, I still had all the rest of it so fresh in my head,
right,
and had just enjoyed it all again, enjoyed it so much that, okay, cool, season 8's here, but it wasn't like, oh my God, what's going to happen? Like, I don't know. Am I making sense?
I know. I mean, I was excited and Jones for it, but I wasn't just like on the edge of my seat just because I was like I don't know. Like, I feel like these people, they only watch them when they air, and then they've literally been waiting on bated breath for this to happen. And I've been excited too, but at the same time, like, this wasn't a make or break thing for me. This season was not make or break. Like, It wasn't. The whole show as a completed set, as 8 seasons, is a very good, solid series. Right. It's amazing. And no, the last season should never be a make or break for a show. You should be able to look at everything as a whole and go, that was awesome. And it was. But
yeah, I agree. I'm very happy with where everybody ended up in the last episode. And again, without talking spoilers, I will say I do have a problem with the execution of one character in particular. But
Someone got executed?
No.
I'm kidding.
Man.
The way it was presented to us And it's Rush Manor. Going
I'm
back
with you.
to,
I think I know exactly what you're talking about.
It doesn't play well in the episode, even though in the end it's a great ending for that character.
I think I know exactly which character.
But the execution of it in the episode, I was not thrilled with. It's still looking back on it, I'm like, oh man, if still had a whole other episode to even just deal with that drama. Instead, it was just like, yeah, let's just rush through this. That is the one thing I don't care for, is the way we rushed through these last 2 seasons. But oh well.
Yeah, they've got Star Wars movies to make. They can't be sitting here dilly-dallying with Game of Thrones anymore.
Right. Anyways. All right, well, we've talked about Game of Thrones, but now I'm dying to know. So did you see Aladdin, Bobby?
Yeah, what did you see this weekend?
I did see Aladdin this weekend. Yeah.
Okay.
I had a chance to check it out today, as a matter of fact.
Oh, so we all saw it today.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have any thoughts before you went in? Not like conceptions, I guess, but
yes.
like, did you kind of go? Did you hear the rump? Like what? Like, I don't know. How did you go in? How'd you come out?
So the way I went into it was based on. Well, I went into it slightly different than I thought I was going to go into it, because initially, what we got when we on this podcast, we talked about the trailer when it came out, and how my biggest thing about it was that not having the reference of the original cartoon that I haven't seen like from start to finish. I've seen parts of it here and there.
Whoa! I know we've talked about this, but
we don't have enough time to go back and to rehash that I haven't seen it. I would if we had enough time, but we all want to talk about it.
You've had time since that conversation to this moment to watch this.
Actually, what's interesting about that? I think David Chen from Slash Film had tweeted out about the fact that it was interesting that the weekend of this live action Aladdin opening, that he wasn't able to find the animated version on Blu-ray or on any kind of streaming service or anything anywhere unless you already own it. So I don't even know that I could have watched it if I tried to at some point before the movie. But I don't know. I just, knowing that this movie was coming out, I just felt like, well, let me just see this on its own terms without having that original animated film in my head. So the when we talked about the trailer initially, my biggest gripe was against Will Smith, and it just seemed like he was just Will Smith, and it just, I don't know, it didn't feel right. And I couldn't give any context to anything else because I hadn't had anything to compare it to. So going into it, there had been, I guess, within this last week and a half, some of the critics who have had a chance to see it, and a lot of critics who kind of felt initially the same way as I did, if not more so, about the trailers for Aladdin, came out of it feeling pretty positive. So I was like, okay, well, if they were really down on it, and they were people who've obviously seen the original animated version and have a fondness and a love for it, and they're saying that they liked it, then that gives me a positive thinking into going into it and thinking I will probably enjoy it, having no basis of which to say it's not like this or it's not like that or, whatever. So coming out of it, well, I'll say this. As it started, I was unsure of the main actor who plays Aladdin. I don't have his IMDb up, but I want to say it's Masina Musad or something like that. But he didn't do it for me at first, and it wasn't until a little bit more into the movie that I started to buy into his character. But it was still, the unknown for me was Will Smith until he came onto the screen. And when he first comes onto the screen as the genie, and he's doing this sort of genie voice, I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I knew that was something I had seen in the trailer. And I was like, yeah, this is how I think it should be. And then he goes back into his Will Smith voice, and it all kind of was like, oh, crap, this isn't working. I don't want to just see Will Smith doing genie. And something happened. I don't know at what point, but I just know at some point I just got used to Will Smith being Will Smith as the genie. And then from there, everything else started to come together and click. And I just kind of fell into the whole story of it all and enjoyed it. And it's so weird because I guess in my mind, I had a vision of what the Aladdin story was, and it was completely different than what I guess I saw in the movie. And it kind of threw me off because I from what I had seen, and again, it's not much, but I guess I had always assumed that in the animated version that Princess Jasmine knew that Aladdin had a genie and that they were just going off on this adventure, and then Jafar was trying to capture them and get the genie for himself. I didn't know that she didn't know all this stuff that was going on. So it was a kind of interesting seeing that all unfold and thinking that it was a different sort of way in my head. But I really did enjoy it. And honestly, the MVP for me in the movie is Naomi Scott as Jasmine. Her when she would sing, it sounded very powerful, and I could feel like at certain parts when she was singing, like the hairs on my arm kind of standing up a little bit, and especially just regardless of me not seeing Aladdin, the initial animated film, there's no way that even me, someone who hasn't seen it, doesn't know A Whole New World song. I mean, you know it, you just know it. And so when they get to that part in the movie and they're singing it, I legit was like feeling all like tingly. It just seemed right. And I don't know how that compares to the animated version, but it really worked for me. And just overall, it just was fun. I enjoyed it. I liked it. I had a good time with it, and that's how I left the movie theater.
I'm pleasantly surprised by Bobby's reaction.
Yeah, I guess I stunned you because you're
not
sort
saying
of quiet
anything.
for the. Yeah.
Oh, well, you're not saying anything either.
Well,
You're
no,
looking at me.
you were questioning Bobby, so I figured you were going to have a reaction to him.
I'm like, why is he staring at me? Like,
You're the one that asked Bobby what he thought.
anybody's allowed to weigh in, David.
No, I started this all saying I was dying to know what you thought, and then you deflected it toward Bobby, so I'm going back to you.
Well, I mean, yeah, I think it was hard not to miss how when the trailers first dropped, the teaser and then the trailer, people weren't really having it. And I'll be honest, I wasn't either. I was seeing the look of it and I was like, I'm not feeling this. There's something about this that there's some layering. I don't know, but I was like, I'm not looking at this. And I will say, I'm kind of with you, Bobby. Like the guy who's playing Aladdin from the trailers, I'm looking at this guy and I'm like, nope, no, not Aladdin. Like I was like, I'm not having this film. Like I was like, I'm already not happy with this. So I went today and I went with David and he brought his kids with him. And so it was kind of like, okay, we're always going to go see Aladdin. This is going to be a fun outing. The kids are going to see it. It's going to be fun for them. Like this will be enjoyable. Like, and I was more just like, I'm curious, but at this point, this movie is going to have to work to impress me because I've not liked what I've seen. I've had no interest in it because I've not enjoyed anything I've seen. I've completely eaten my opinion because I will say I think this is one of the better Disney animated films, like live actions that they've done. Like it's up there. Wow. I like this a lot. I was insanely impressed with this by the time the film was over. I feel like it had a rough start. Mm-hmm. I'm with you. The guy playing Aladdin, he had to work to sell it. He had to work hard. But there's a turning point somewhere, and I think it's just as he turns into Prince Ali. I got there finally, but it took a while to get me on board with him. And I think the girl playing Jasmine was spectacular. I don't know. The other thing that kind of put me on the fence was the whole Guy Ritchie point. Honestly, I've had hit and misses with Guy Ritchie. And so I never really knew what I was going to get. And again, I feel like looking at the trailers, the aesthetics, I was like, I don't buy this. But watching it, I will say some of the street scenes in Agrabah feel like they're going through an actual like Disney theme park. They're not as realistic as I think they probably should be. They look like you're going through a Disney theme park is what it feels like to me. And so that's kind of a miss. But I will say overall, this film was I'm insanely impressed. Like between this and Dumbo this year, Disney's winning me over on these live action makes.
Nice.
They're winning me over finally. It's taken a while. It's been a slow, solid win over, but they're getting there for me. I think Will Smith was awesome as the genie. I'm glad that he did not try to just completely emulate and like in a time capsule what Robin did. He did make it his own. There's jokes in that carried over from the animated that I think are good because they were solid jokes. They played well and they continue to play well. But no, I'm insanely happy with this. The guy who played Jafar, I really like what they did with Jafar. I think they made him a more realistic villain, and I really liked it. The singing, the songs, and I will say it's almost like they got into the palace. They get to the genie and then they finally, I guess, start working more on the aesthetic of it. Like they start adding in these different color palettes, and then the whole like Prince Ali being announced when he arrives in Agrabah, like that scene, beautiful. And just everything in the palace, like they finally sold me on the aesthetic. But again, it took to a certain point before the aesthetic, I think, became more realistic in a way. I really liked it. I'm surprised by my own reaction, honestly. I really liked it. I enjoyed it a lot.
I mean, yeah, I was dying to know because you were quite negative on this movie.
Oh no, I was not feeling this film.
Like, and then I had mentioned to you, hey, it seems like there's decent reaction to it, and I could tell you seemed like, I don't know.
Yeah,
like, these people probably don't know what they're talking about.
It is mediocre.
And I say that, and yeah, I mean, if you look at the Rotten Tomato score, I don't have it in front of me, but I looked at it at one point today, and it's not great. It's like 50-something%. So
really?
Yeah. But I thoroughly enjoyed it.
I thought this was better than Beauty and the Beast live action.
I've thought about that that specifically, and that's close. I'm with you. I might say that, but I don't know.
I'm grasping it. I'm going to go ahead and say it. It was kind of close earlier, but the longer I've thought about it today, I think I can say
there's a couple things about this that, like, for instance, Beauty and the Beast had a new song in it, which I thoroughly enjoyed. There's a new song in this that I don't care for.
The Jasmine one?
Yeah.
You didn't like that?
I do not care for Speechless. Like,
I liked it, but I had no basis for it. I didn't know if it was in the cartoon. So
to me, it doesn't. It feels like it doesn't fit, and I can hear it already. I can hear the reaction. Most people listening will go,
because you're looking at my face right now.
No, hear me out. That. Oh, you're used to the old soundtrack, so of course it sticks out like a sore thumb because you're not used to it. And I'm like, yes, but I'm sorry, this doesn't sound the same to me. It doesn't feel like it fits as a musical number with everything else. And I don't know. I'm not saying it's a bad song, and I will say maybe another problem I had with it was, at least in the mix, and I don't know if this is our theater, it was hard to understand a lot of her lyrics when she was singing it. But, yeah, I don't know. I could have done without that. With that said, I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. I borderline loved it. Like, I was very, very happy with it.
I agree.
I actually had almost no problem with what's his name as Aladdin. And I had been hearing a lot of the same thing. Like, oh, you know, if there was anybody I didn't care for quite as much, it was him as Aladdin. But I thought he was fine. I mean, maybe he got off to a slow start. I might agree with that. But otherwise, I was quite happy with him. And yeah, Will Smith, I thought was great. I'm glad that he did his own thing. He wasn't, like you said, he's not trying to be Robin Williams. And I didn't think he was going to be.
I didn't either, but...
And thank God he didn't. I mean, or I shouldn't even say him, that the filmmakers didn't push him to go, hey, we're going to remake Robin Williams genie. No. He does his own thing. I mean, yeah, for me, if there's a negative there, it's just you kind of have to get used to those shots when he is the blue genie and he has this. It's your mind can't completely buy into this. It looks slightly fake. It's not completely realistic. This weird, like, he's got this computer generated aspect to him that looks slightly funky, and it's actually relieving when he then will switch to I'm human genie. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. I don't have to deal with looking at this like funky, not quite perfect looking version of you.
Right.
But otherwise, yeah, I thought his version of Genie was great. The Prince Ali number I loved.
Oh, so good.
It was so good.
So damn good.
Overall, yeah, I really liked it. And if there was one thing I was majorly negative on outside of the Genie from the trailers, it was Jafar. Because he does going back to comparing it to the animated film, the Jafar in the animated film was an older looking Jafar. And I remember the first time I saw a trailer for this going, that guy, no, that looks like a child compared to how Jafar should look. Like, that was the thing I bumped on. But hey, it's a movie. It's going to do things differently. And overall, I was very happy with him. I'm just saying that was definitely something from the trailers. I was like, it just doesn't look old enough.
Again, I think the trailers were just really crappy trailers. I think those were bad trailers. I've officially I'm like, that's it. Those trailers were crap. And that's all I can say at this point, because from the trailers was so not about this film. And all I could say is they were horrible. And I also can borderline say that I wound up loving this film because it was really good. It was really good. And I liked all the musical numbers. I liked the new number. I think the humor was really good. And I saw you chuckling a few times. Oh, yeah. I mean, the whole Ali meeting the princess scene, that was just stupid hilarious. And then the parties, I mean, it was funny. There was some really...
Yeah, there's definitely new stuff in here from the animated movie that other than the one song, I was quite happy with. And I liked the things they changed. And yeah, it was funny. I thought about the same thing afterwards. I was like, my first thought walking out of the theater was like, oh, wow, that might actually be one of the better live action animated, animated to live action versions I've seen. And then I'm actually looking at a list here and I'm like, well, the reality is I haven't seen many of them.
You haven't?
No, I've seen Beauty and the Beast and I've seen Jungle Book.
I liked Cinderella a lot, by the way.
I never saw Cinderella.
I still need to see that.
Cinderella is good. I think you guys would like it. I liked it. And it was one of the real first ones, I think.
Yeah, I think it was the first one.
Well, I mean, if you want to get technical, the first one would be 101 Dalmatians if you really wanted to get...
Yeah, true, but I guess I don't count that one because... It didn't seem like they were really going for what they're going for now.
I was going to say that was a time frame that they were kind of playing with it. That's when you had that one Jungle Book version, which I actually liked when I was younger, but now as an adult, I'd have to go back and see what I think about that. But and then we had the 101 Dalmatians, 102 Dalmatians. I don't know if they're counting Maleficent as one because it's its own story.
Right.
But I liked Maleficent a lot. And I really like Cinderella. You guys need to see Cinderella. I liked that. I was impressed with that one.
Yeah, I haven't seen either of those. I mean, Alice in Wonderland, I've seen that, but...
I never saw Pete's Dragon, so I haven't seen that one.
I was going to ask
you
guys...
Dave, Alice in Wonderland you haven't seen?
Yes, I have seen Alice in Wonderland.
Oh, but did you mention that one? I was...
Yes, yeah, I brought it up. But I think we were all kind of talking over to each other.
Yeah, a little bit. Is that... I didn't know if that was considered one or not, actually.
Well, I mean, when we all say considered one, I mean, the reality is we're talking about animated movies that were remade into live action. That's textbook. So yeah, I would say it is. I mean, the sequel isn't really following the plot of any animated movie. So I mean, that's kind of its own thing, but
it's following more the book.
But yeah, I guess that's what I kind of consider when I say if it's one or not, is if it's the animated version just brought to life with some slight changes here and there. And that's how it seems like Cinderella's been, Beauty and the Beast has been, Jungle Book has been. I haven't seen Alice in Wonderland to say if it's like the animated version that Disney did or not. I don't know.
I'd say it's close enough. I mean, it's following the same basically plot line.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I guess in my head, when I'm saying these new animated to live versions is this new era that Disney started. And I think technically this section is kicked off with Cinderella.
That's how I kind of look at it.
That's how I look at this section, is this time frame that we're in right now. And I will say I don't know. I've been kind of back and forth on it, but I was impressed with Dumbo. I liked it. I was surprised I liked Dumbo as much as I did. And this is, solid.
I was going to ask about one weird thing I bumped on watching this, and I was curious if I was the only one that noticed it, or if you guys noticed it. It was weird. It was during the opening of the movie when
this action scene sped up.
Yes,
I did, and I didn't like it.
It was weird.
I was like, why are we doing this?
It started...
It felt like it was some Benny Hill kind of stuff going on.
Exactly. It started very weird. With like when Aladdin and Jasmine are like, they're in like between buildings walking toward like a bigger roadway, whatever you want to call it. And I could tell it was like, caught me. I'm like, the way he's moving, it's almost like they shot this at a slightly slower frame rate and sped it back up to normal frame rate. And it's like, this looks weird. And he continued. And the Benny Hinn reference is spot on. It felt like that for a little bit.
Well, but I mean, I will say Guy Ritchie plays with that kind of stuff sometimes.
Not like this. This was different. Like, I get what you're saying.
I know what you're saying, though. I thought it was kind of weird, too. Again, I think a lot of what happened when they were actually in the Straits of Agrabah, I bumped on a lot of that. Like the whole chase scene, I kind of bumped on. The sets themselves, I bumped on. I was having issues when they were actually down in Agrabah. Like that wasn't working for me for the beginning of the movie. Later on, I think it got better.
Because when you're saying like, oh, it looked like a theme park. I mean, to me, I get what you're saying, but I think in order for it to fit the context of this kind of story with a genie and a flying, carpet, and I don't know, it felt like it kind of fit. Because I mean, that's a comment I actually remember making about Beauty and the Beast. Like, I liked Beauty and the Beast, but even the look of that village had kind of a Disney-fied look about it.
Set looking.
That I was kind of like, oh man, I thought it was going to look a little more realistic. And it sounds like that's the same kind of thing you're saying about this one. But yeah. I don't know. For me, I was kind of fine with it because this is kind of fantasy. It's not,
I know. I guess I just kind of feel like I'm like, you guys could have easily gone to so many locations and shot for a few days or for a few weeks. I don't know. I just kind of feel like I'm like, there's areas you guys could have gone to. But
then I feel like there's the risk of it. Then the look wouldn't mesh as well with these kind of costumes. Like,
yeah. But I will say, like, for as far as like live action kids film, and I say action, I mean, I'm talking like action. Like, I will say, I wasn't feeling the chase at the beginning of the film with the guardsmen against Aladdin, but the chase scene at the end when they're just trying to get the lamp away from Iago, that chase scene was amazing.
Right.
I was loving that one. I was like, man, and I will say I was impressed with Iago. I like that he wasn't just fully talking. He was a parrot, but he was choosing his words very specifically, like he was actually in the conversation and had opinions on things. And I thought that was done really well.
Yeah.
But no, the chasing with Iago at the end, I thought was awesome. I was like, dang, this is sweet.
So what did your kids think?
I mean, they say, you ask them walking out of the theater and they're like, oh yeah, we liked it. But I could tell, I mean,
they were fidgety.
They were getting fidgety. And I mean, especially for my daughter, who's only 3, she'll be 4 very soon.
Yeah. She'll be 4 in less than a month.
This is definitely the first live action movie she's seen in the theater. And
it is the first live action movie she's seen in the theater.
Even though it is a Disney live action movie or Disney movie, there's still a lot of scenes where it's just 2 characters talking. And, for her at her age, she was fidgety, but overall, I think she just enjoyed being in a movie theater. So,
she does. She likes just going to the theater. She thinks it's cool. Like, she likes looking at the projection machine. Like, she just thinks it's kind of cool to be amongst all these people all watching a film at the same time. Like, you can tell she likes watching people like watch the movie. Like, it's really cute.
Right. But then my son, who's 7, he was even getting kind of fidgety. I could tell he was. Even Aladdin, the animated movie, I don't think is one of his favorites.
But she likes the animated one.
Right.
But.
So. Mainly, it was like, I'll be honest, it wouldn't have been my first choice of a movie to take them to, but in terms of just the way this weekend was playing out, it was like, well, I want to see this. And at least this is a Disney movie. So, you know what, guys? You're coming with me.
Well, between the curiosity of seeing this film and also just the ridiculous heat wave, and I'm saying this, and we live in Florida, so heat is a thing, but the heat this weekend is insane. And it's not even like humidity. Like, there is humidity, but it's like legit, like, sun, heat, we're going to burn you. Like, it's really hot this weekend.
Right.
And it was like, what can we do?
Even it's abnormal for us even this early.
It is abnormal for us even this early. And it was just like, what can we do to keep the kids entertained but also not give them heat stroke? Let's go to an air-conditioned movie theater.
Right.
Like, I don't know. It was just one of those things. And so it worked out well. And I think overall, I think your son liked it. I think he did.
I think he did. But yeah, there's definitely times where I could tell he was getting a little like, is this over yet? It's all because it also wasn't short. I think it comes in at like a hair over 2 hours.
It's kind of long. It is. And he's seen live movies in the theater before.
Yeah,
but
I took him to see the Pacific Rim sequel. And I forget
she'd
what
never
else.
seen a live action before. So, and she watches a few of them at the house, but she doesn't watch a lot of them.
Right.
Yeah, she's never seen one in the theater. But I will say, I was probing her later on today, and I was just kind of like, what did you like about the movie? Because I asked her, I was like, did you like it? She's like, yeah, I liked it. And I was like, well, what did you like about it? She's like, oh, I don't know. I'm like, did you like the genie? And she's like, no. And I was like, did you like the princess? And she's like, no. I'm like,
what did you like?
Did you like the carpet? Did you like carpet? And she's like, no. And then I was like, did you like, and I'm just about to say Abu, and she goes, monkey, I like the monkey. And I'm like, you liked Abu. Of course you did. Yeah.
Right.
She was all about Abu. She thought he was cute.
That's fun.
Also, there's not, this is kind of movie, I feel like there's not really spoilers. I mean,
No, because
it's based on,
really.
There's things they changed, and I'm not really going to bring those up, I guess. But
1001 Arabian Nights. This is a book that's grown up with children, let alone there's a Disney animated. Like, there's no spoilers.
And this
here.
was another thing that at first I was like, is this just like something about our presentation where it's not quite in sync? But like the very first time someone is singing in this movie, which is the very first scene in the movie, like the sync was not close.
I actually noticed that. So the princess song, when she was singing it the first time in her bedroom, I noticed it there, and it was bugging me. And I did notice it a little bit when Will Smith started up with the first song, the intro song, and a little bit with One Jump with Aladdin. Like, I felt like at the beginning, but then it's somewhere it kind of caught up. But I will say those 3 songs, I noticed it hard. I was like, well,
it was especially glaring with that very first number. And I'm like, I know Will Smith
I know he can sing.
Like, he's had to lip sync, a few times in his career. Come
right.
on. Like,
this isn't new for him.
Come on.
I don't know if I noticed that. I'm not saying that wasn't the case, but I didn't notice it.
That's why part of me is like, I know as much work as is done on a movie, in the end, it all comes down to the projection and the presentation in a movie theater. And I'm like, maybe there's something going on with the presentation in here.
We were in a Limax, and that's all I can give it to is we were in a Limax. So
anyway, I was just curious. I noticed that right at the beginning. It wasn't a great way to start immediately. Part of me was like, oh, this is weird. It's not in sync, and it's bugging.
This movie took me a little bit to get into, but once I did, I was sold.
Yeah, I really liked it. I'm very happy.
I'm glad we all agree. Look at us.
Yeah.
I'm glad to see it looks like it's going to make decent money. Obviously we're recording this Saturday night. There's no numbers for the weekend yet, but it's tracking, I think, for like 100 plus 4-day debut.
It's not bad. Sweet.
So. Yeah, and I'm curious what it'll make overseas. Because one of the things that I really loved about this movie that I didn't really touch on in terms of talking about it is just the fact that we have an almost non-white cast in this movie, and it's a huge Disney movie. I think Mina Masood is Egyptian, and I'm not sure what nationality Naomi Scott is, but just it's that representation, and
Mm-hmm.
I can only imagine what people who are from the different countries will see in this movie and say, wow, that's like something for me that's on screen. And it's this story, and it's not just this animated story. It's live people playing these characters and have some sort of aspect of myself on screen. And it's cool. And it's like, it's nice to see these, like Naomi Scott. The only other thing I think I've seen her in that I can remember is Power Rangers movie that came out a
Yeah.
couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And so for her, and then for Mina Massoud, who I haven't seen in anything before, this could be the start of their careers and go on and seeing them in other things. And it's very cool. And I'm very happy for anyone who can see this movie and be like, wow, I see someone like myself on screen. So I for that reason alone, I'm happy that this movie exists and that it's actually a good movie to me anyway.
No, I totally agree. I was thinking that at one point. I was like, wow, look at how diverse this whole cast, and even like the regular people of the city. And I was just like, there's a lot of diversity here, and I really like it. I was really happy with that. And I was like there was some strong Bollywood influences. Guy was definitely feeling on. Yeah. I was like, which I was cool with. I'm like, I get it. Like, this really isn't in India, but I'm like, it's cool. I'm fine with the Bollywood influence. It's fine.
Right.
I'm down with it. I'll take it. Anyways.
So, I saw some other stuff. Did you guys want to hear about that?
Yeah, real quick. I know we're running out of time, but yeah. Did you see Brightburn, for instance? I'm curious.
Well, I saw Booksmart.
Oh.
And I did want to read a tweet that I saw from Olivia Wilde, who is the director of Booksmart. And I wanted to read that before I get into what my thoughts of the movie is. But she says, anyone out there saving Booksmart for another day, consider making that day today. We are getting creamed by the big dogs out there and need your support. Don't give studios an excuse not to greenlight movies made by and about women. And I took that in a negative way, I guess, because I feel like she's directing that at the wrong people, because I think that battle should have been fought when the studio first announced the release date for this movie, because it's summer movie season, and a movie like this is going to get creamed when you have Aladdin coming out the same weekend, and the previous weekend you had something like John Wick coming out. I mean, why would you sandwich a movie like this that's an indie, low-budget film in summer, in the time that the big summer movies are coming out? This could have been easily something that could have come out in March or September when it's a little bit of a lull and had more eyes to it, because there's that way to get that attention. And for it to come out at this point in time, it just seems like, I don't know, the studio was very tone deaf in terms of reading the temperature of when the movie like this should be released. That being said, I really enjoyed the movie a lot. I found myself laughing at a lot of different things within the movie, and I appreciated that. To me, this movie, it didn't do a lot of things that typical movies of this nature will do with the lead characters, and it did do some things that were, I guess, were kind of like the kind of same sense that you get in other movies, where when things kind of hit the fan kind of stuff, without going into spoilers. But overall, I just really enjoyed the relationship between the two lead female characters, and that I don't know what kind of high school that they go to. I wish I had a high school like that, because I don't think I've ever seen people get away with the amount of things that they get away with in their high school. Just all the antics going on. But it just was like a fun movie, and it's definitely a different type of a millennial kind of movie of high school, because I feel like if this movie had been like this, to me feels like an updated version in terms of, like, if you see movies in the 80s, and I'm thinking of John Hughes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're thinking of the John Hughes era.
if those movies had come out today, I feel like they would feel something like this in terms of it just felt very millennial because of a lot of the things going on within the movie. And it seems like it has that sensibility to it because of things that have changed, and you have more LGB LGBTQ characters in it, and so there's those aspects along with just some of the tropes that you would normally see isn't specifically there. Like there's not, okay, here's the kids that are getting picked on kind of thing. It's not quite like that. There's just people are allowed to kind of live their lives and be, but there's still that judgy thing that goes on that just is just a part of nature and growing up, and it has those aspects to it. But I really did just enjoy the movie in terms of the comedy and the humor, and not everything landed for me, but a lot of it did. So I really had a fun time with it.
Nice. I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah, and the other thing I did see, as David mentioned, was Brightburn. I got a chance to watch that as well, and that was written by.
I was gonna say make this short and sweet because I'm actually interested to see this, and David has zero interest to see this film, so I feel like I'm dragging him.
Describe it as 0, but it's pretty low.
Really 0?
Yeah,
like literally 0?
He's really not interested to see this.
I
movie,
said I would not
curiosity.
describe it as 0. I would not say it as 0.
I thought literally you said I would describe it as 0.
No, Michelle, you're saying I have 0 interest. I'm saying no. Let's not put it that way.
Okay.
Anyway, I'll get into it but go ahead.
So yeah, I mean, to the nature of the movie, if anyone who has not seen the trailer, it's kind of like what if Superman landed in Kansas and grew up to be bad instead of good? And that's kind of like a really quick synopsis. And I really can't say much other than I liked it, but I think it felt to me as like it really started to get it ended just as it really started to get good to me. It just it felt like there was definitely some things that where it was starting to ramp up, and I would have liked to have seen a little bit more, maybe another 20 minutes after that point, because it just felt like, oh, now we're really getting somewhere. And before that, there's definitely an aspect to it that's good, but you really feel like it kicks into another gear at a certain part of the movie towards the end. So, but yeah, I mean, I liked it. I don't know how David will feel if he gets a chance to see it, but yeah, I won't say much more than that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just sorry to answer the question, but I don't know. Just on the trailers, just I get that's the concept that this what if basically Superman went bad, but just I don't know. Something about the execution of it from what I see in the trailers just seems like silly to me. I don't know. It just does not.
In what way silly?
I don't know. It's just like
it's not taken silly. I'll tell you that the tone of it is definitely not silly.
I don't think it is. That's not what I mean. Just to me, it looks like it's not specifically not being silly, but it's just like the whole idea of it, but not in the context of him like being like almost like a villain, but more like like a horror movie kind of character. Like it's just I don't know, something about it is just struck me as weird, and it's like trying too hard to do like something geared toward the current comic book movie kind of audience. It's something I don't know. I'm not making sense, but it seems odd, and it just didn't. I remember seeing it and like the shots of like her getting the child out of the the thing that landed on Earth, and I'm like, oh, that's what we're doing here. I'm good. I don't need to see this. I don't know why. And then I've been surprised, like, because that was just my natural reaction. And then the more and more I've, listened to other podcasts, watch YouTube videos, talk to you guys, and I'm like, oh, wow, everyone's really excited about this. Like, did I miss something?
Let me clarify. I won't say that I'm excited. I am intrigued. I'm very curious about this film. I don't think it looks bad, but I also don't think it looks good. And I need to know. Does that make sense?
I get that.
Like,
Yeah,
I just want to see this
Totally
because I
gets-
want to know.
makes
Like,
sense.
I'm going into this very, like, flat line. Very, like, okay, let's see what the hell this is about. Like, I'm... Like, if it just completely dies and it's horrible and it goes off a cliff, then it does. But then on the off chance that this is like, oh, wow, shit, this was really smart. Like, I'm looking forward to the surprise of what this is going to bring me. I'm extremely intrigued by this film. I have no, like... I didn't go into this the way I did with Aladdin today. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's a good way to go
I'm
into
gonna
it.
put it that
I
way. Like,
understand.
and I usually don't go into films thinking, ugh, whatever. Okay, I guess I'm seeing this. It doesn't look good, but whatever. I'm gonna go. And I usually don't feel that. I usually don't do that. And I did that today with Aladdin. I definitely went in going, ugh, all right, let's do this. It's cool, whatever. Hell, if anything, it's something to do today. Like, that's basically how I went into the theater this morning. And I was like, oh, wow, I really, really, really am happy with this movie. So yeah, I don't know. Brightburn, I'm intrigued and I'm curious, and I just got to see how it plays out.
Well, I
I
hope
won't
you
say
do
I'm
get a chance
excited.
to see it because I really want to hear your opinion, and even David if he does end up going, just because
Oh, he's
of
going.
how much he's
John
pushing
Wick
back
3
on
first.
it a little bit.
Oh,
Well, hey, we still got a lot of weekend to go, so
I'm
there's
sorry.
no reason
That
why
is
you can't.
definitely a priority before I see Brightburn. There's no way in hell I am stepping foot in a movie theater to see Brightburn when I have not seen John Wick 3.
That's fair.
guess we're staying up tonight to watch John Wick 2, aren't we?
Nice.
Yeah.
Enjoy that, and yeah, and I'm very, 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 very amped to see Godzilla King of Monsters next week.
I want to say this. You guys know I am a
You are
fan.
stupid
I am.
excited.
The only thing that has me somewhat annoyed is just how many times I have seen the trailers for that movie.
I've seen trailers
Like,
for this film way too much.
Every movie we have seen,
Every movie.
it has played in front of. Not only that, but that basically the footage we saw at WonderCon, which was like that extended kind of trailer we've seen in the IMAX theater the few times we've been in IMAX. It's just like, okay, it's like, and I'm saying this as someone who is very excited about
You're
seeing
giddy
this,
about seeing this film.
but it's I'm worried that it's getting borderline to, it's going to push me to the point of being like, oh fuck, man, like I've watched so many trailers, I'm not even as excited anymore. Because now I'm almost annoyed.
Well, it's coming soon, thank God.
It's next weekend, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's two things in what you just said, David, which is why, in a sense, I can understand it. Is one, for you to have seen the trailer that many times, mean you've gone to the movies that many times. So there's obviously that aspect, because it's one of those movies that's gonna play in front of a lot of different of these other movies that we've been going to go see. But then the other point to that is that's one of the reasons why, as much as I can try and time it, I try and get there right when the movie's about to start, because I can't tell you how many times I keep seeing the same trailers for stuff, and I get the same feeling as you. Like, I gotta say, I had seen that Booksmart trailer at least a dozen times before the movie actually came out this week, before I was able to see it. So it was like when some of those scenes played in the movie, I was like, man, that would have worked a little bit better probably had I not seen it like 12 times already in the other trailers I've seen. So yeah, I totally get it. And that's why I constantly try and come into the movie theater 20 minutes after the start time, because trailers nowadays are between 20 and 25 minutes, actually.
Oh, if only I could
bumped
convince
up.
another person to do that.
Oh,
I mean, you can do your own thing. You want to get in later.
I mean, there are assigned seats, for crying out loud now.
Just that's the way.
I think my
that's the
thing
way I roll.
is like, if I can kind of tell on what movie we're seeing if I'm going to see new trailers when I'm not going to see new trailers. And there's times I'm like, I really don't need to get there that early, because I'm like, they're just going to play these trailers, and I can go boom, to boom, to boom, to boom, to boom, and name them off. And that's exactly what they play. And I'm like, I didn't need to see this for the millionth time. I will say Godzilla has played in front of every freaking film for the last 3 months. And it's funny today though watching it because I was what they put Godzilla in front of Aladdin? Really? Okay, sure, fine, whatever. But it was funny because the trailer ended and then your daughter was like, "Oh, I not see that movie. No, thank you."
Oh no, yeah, it was Atticus said it. My son said that line very loudly. Like the whole theater reacted to him when he did
hilarious.
it because it was that kind of perfect timing. Is like the trailer went silent because it just ended, and he was just like, "Yeah, I'm not seeing that." And the entire theater kind of reacted.
Hilarious. I mean, even your daughter, she looked at me kind of like, "That's a no. That's a hard no." Like she literally gave me this face, like, "That's a hard no, Michelle." I was like, and then he said that the same moment she's looking at me like that,
right.
And I was just like, I was dead. I was like, "You guys are killing me. This is funny." So funny. So funny. Godzilla, King of the Monsters.
Can't wait. I'm definitely going to see that in IMAX for sure.
Are we
And I'm going to try and see it in true IMAX if I can.
Oh, we're seeing it on Saturday.
Are we seeing it Saturday?
We're seeing it in Dolby Cinema, and the problem is, I assume that they're still holding Dolby Cinema. I'm assuming they're still holding it basically for Endgame, but they're showing it in Dolby Cinema like one showing a day.
That's right.
Oh,
So stupid.
and that was a movie that I was like, I want to see this in Dolby Cinema. So I was like, all right, I guess it's the Saturday showing. So,
and I'm saying that, and I love Endgame, but seriously, Endgame needs to get out of the Dolby and bring in, like, Godzilla needs to be in Dolby. Like, I will have to agree. Like,
yeah, that's the kind of movie I'm like. I mean, yeah, obviously Endgame is the kind of movie that needs to be in Dolby too, but like, come on. All right, Godzilla is the new movie in town.
It's had its time. Now it's Godzilla's turn.
I know that when I watched Aladdin today, it was in Dolby, so I guess it's just depending on the theater and how they contracted it or whatever.
I guess. Because, we wound up in the IMAX today, so, yeah. Anyways.
Well, with that, it's been fun, guys.
It's been fun. Covered some ground today.
And we didn't even get to a bunch of things.
I know.
No. We didn't get to like the ton of Star Wars photos we got that you could spend a whole episode on just photos.
Yeah. I know. There's a ton of stuff. I still had 2 other things to talk about, but yeah, we filled jam-packed this episode this week.
Maybe we could do an Instagram on Wednesday night and do a little news.
There we go.
There's that.
I like the way
like a short one, like a little Instagram live for a few minutes, talk some news. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see how the week plays out. I'm saying this like I barely know what I do the next day, so
right.
Like, yeah. Wednesday, that could be a month from now at this point. I have no idea.
Sure. All right. Yep. It's time to wrap things up. As always, we'd love to hear back from everyone listening. You can email us at feedback@flickereffect.com. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at flicker_effect. And youtube.com/flickereffect. With that, I'm David Lott.
I'm Bobby Jackson.
And I'm Michelle Hillard.
Thanks for listening.